Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. The Red Army was the name given to Manchester United away support during the 1970s. The group originated in Manchester, the home of Manchester United. Areas around the city with strong working-class roots were particularly influential in the group's formation. The Stretford End was the spiritual home of the Red Army. It was a standing terrace where the most vocal and passionate supporters gathered. This section became synonymous with the group. Most notoriously in 1974 and 5, when United had been relegated from the top flight of English football and played one season in the second division. The Red Army caused mayhem at grounds up and down the country, visiting stadiums where they would at times outnumber the home support. Together with a Bolton Wanderers fan stabbing a young Blackpool fan to death behind the Cop at Bloomfield Road in Blackpool during a second division match on the 24th of August 1974. This led to the introduction of crowd segregation and fencing at football grounds in England. The Red Army were featured in the 1985 documentary Hooligan, based around West Ham United's trip to Old Trafford in the FA Cup 6th round. It shows the Red Army fighting with the intercity firm ICF around Manchester. They were also featured in the Real Football Factory's documentary series, an episode of the BBC drama Life on Mars centred on football hooliganism by Manchester United fans in the 1970s. Tony O'Neill, the man behind the firm and a former member, has released 2 books about the firm. Red Army General in 2005, concentrating on the 70s and early 80s, and The Men in Black in 2006, which told the history from the mid-80s to the present day. Their activities have declined since the late 80s, as football hooliganism in general has become a less prolific problem than it was for more than a decade before that. Although today the term Red Army is used mostly to refer to fans of the club in general, the hooligan firm has been one of the largest firms in British football. Firm members and the firm itself are sometimes known as the Men in Black, due to the members dressing in all black clothing. Many members were working-class youths from Manchester and surrounding areas. They formed friendships in the terraces and pubs, which evolved into a broader group identity. In his book, Hotshot, Red Army hooligan Harry Gibson states that there are also subdivisions of the firm known as the Young Munichs, the intercity jibbers ICJ, the M58 firm and the Moston Rats. While these subgroups were part of the larger Red Army, there could be internal rivalries or competition for status. However, they often united against common rivals, particularly during matches or confrontations with other hooligan groups. The Red Army as a whole maintained fierce rivalries with hooligan groups like Liverpool's The Urchins, Leeds United's Service Crew, and Millwall's Bushwhackers. In his book Undesirables, Colin Blaney has also stated that the ICJ is dedicated to carrying out acquisitive forms of crime, in addition to football hooliganism. During Manchester United's European campaigns, the Red Army also gained notoriety for their clashes with fans of foreign clubs. Notable incidents occurred with Italian ultras Juventus, Roma and Inter Milan, Dutch firms Ajax and Feyenoord, German fans Bayern Munich. These international encounters added to their reputation as one of England's most feared hooligan groups. He claims that members of the group have been involved in smuggling drugs to Europe and Asia from Latin America and the Caribbean, organising jailbreaks, carrying out armed robberies, travelling overseas to Asia and mainland Europe in order to steal jewellery and committing street robberies. It is the criminal wing of the Red Army. Over time, their style evolved into the casual subculture, characterised by designer clothing and a more covert approach to hooligan activities. Government crackdown. In the late 80s and 90s, a series of measures were introduced to combat football hooliganism, including banning orders, CCTV surveillance, and all-seater stadiums. These measures, along with stricter policing, significantly reduced the influence of groups like the Red Army. While football hooliganism has not been entirely eradicated, the large-scale organised violence associated with groups like the Red Army has largely disappeared from English football. Today, the Red Army is remembered as a prominent example of football hooliganism's heyday. Documentaries, books, and films about the culture often reference their exploits, highlighting both the dark side of football fandom and its ability to inspire loyalty and passion in unique ways. Right, now let's get right into the juicy bits. Let's listen to the stories from actual Red Army and Men in Black members on what was like being a member of the firm, how they came about joining the mob, and some of their biggest clashes and rivalries. We will start by listening to Colin Blaney, true-life factual events in his own words. Munich is a term used to goad United supporters, referring to the Munich air disaster of February 1958. The Scousers called us munichs all the way from the 70s into the mid-80s, but soon shut up after the tragic Heysel and Hillsborough disasters, which was understandably sad and heartbreaking incidents for every football fan and family, but especially so for the Scousers. But that's when the bitter blue Conch City fans took over. Those envious wankers seemed to think it funny that 8 of our players lost their lives that day. "Oh look, it's the young Munichs," they would say whenever they saw our firm. "Look at this bunch of young Munichs here, trying to be the boys." They could call us whatever the F they liked, for all I cared. If they wanted to label us the young Munichs, then F it, we were the young Munichs. It was no skin off my nose. The young Munichs was used in the same way as black people would use the N-word. We were transforming a slur, taking away its power and reclaiming it as our own. They could insult our fallen heroes to their heart's content, because we still had a better firm than theirs, and no amount of abuse could alter that. Rather than having to actively look for lads to join our mob, Martin and me were constantly inundated with requests from people wanting to get on board. Most of our recruits hailed from Gorton, Moss Side, Longsight, Openshaw or Whitefield. They had all heard about our reputation as fighters during our Gorton business days, and knew how game we were. While travelling on the 53 bus from Cheetham Hill to Old Trafford, I had also become friendly with lads from areas we were once at war with. A lot of them wanted in, so we ended up with 50 handy boys, each of whom was more than capable of taking on the governors. City had been getting far too big for their boots. They needed taking down a peg. Stories were constantly going around about them attacking lone United supporters at the bus stops near Piccadilly Station, which made us eager to teach them a lesson. Anyone can victimise somebody on their own, but would they be so brave-faced against equal numbers? Would they F? It was hard work fighting the young governors to begin with, because they had a good 200 lads. There were groups of them all over the city centre whenever I went into town, which meant I always had to watch my back. They were a bunch of liberty-taking shitbags too, only ever getting results when they were picking off smaller groups. One of our most intense run-ins with the young governors took place on a sunny afternoon in a city centre backstreet. 30 of our boys were drinking at a bar when one of City's top boys came bowling over to arrange a fight. "We will see you around the corner in 10, he said. "You're effing having it." We downed our drinks and headed off to meet our rivals, eager to get stuck in. Our firm that day consisted mostly of lads from inner city Manchester, with a couple of boys from Droylsden thrown into the mix. We were ready to kick off the moment that City showed their faces. "No runners here," one of our top lads briefed our other young Munichs. "Everybody stands their ground," he said. "Hooligans are like dominoes. The moment one lad goes, the rest will usually follow." Sure enough, a load of City's lads came running around the corner a couple of minutes later, bouncing around the streets in typical Blue Nose fashion. One of them was carrying a metal newspaper stand and slammed it into the side of a face of a lad we will call T, sending a metallic pinging sound resounding through the streets. It was such a powerful blow that I could feel it myself. They were governors, in name alone. Manchester was our manor, and we were going to show our shitbag neighbours who was boss. Fair play to the shit to have the balls to offer us out in the first place, but they really didn't stand a chance. Munich, we shouted. That was our battle cry. If that was what we called ourselves, then the Blues would know that they could never wind us up with it again. After a brief standoff, City were soon on their toes. This was it. We got a result. I was shaking with adrenaline as I chased them down the street. Victory was ours. The governors were no more. That was just one encounter that United's lads had with the City governors. I could have gone into more detail, because there is a lot more to that story than what I have put in this video. Maybe I will make a part 2 for this video, because there have been so many incidents involving the United lads and City. I wanted to cut it down so we could have a look at clashes with other firms too. So now I am going to look at witness accounts and articles about some of United's other clashes. In 1977, United embarked on their first European campaign in a decade. The wide-awake firm were determined to take advantage of the unsuspecting shopkeepers of the continent. Blaney's first away trip was the notorious European Cup winners. Cup first round tie against Saint Etienne. Dubbed the Battle of the Croissants, the football was relegated to a sideshow as a bloody riot broke out before a ball had even been kicked. The trouble was so bad, UEFA ordered the return leg be played away from Old Trafford, which resulted in the two teams facing each other at Plymouth Argyle's home park stadium. The night before the game, a small group of Manchester supporters, some with knives, broke shop windows, ransacked the hall of an hotel and looted a shop in the city, reported the Times. 5 were arrested and will appear in court. Blaney, having sold a stolen Van Giel suit to buy some dodgy ID before jibbing on trains and ferries to the south of France, was in the thick of the action. And he also took the opportunity the chaos afforded to go on the rob. The plan was for me to block for his friend Rab while he shoplifted in nearby clothes stores, he wrote in Grafters. He went for the best tackle Lacoste and any kind of cashmere tops, lowest jeans, which were bang in at the time and worn with kicker shoes. Soon, we decided to wear some of it ourselves, as we had started to stink. After a quick shower in the train station toilets, we sold the rest of the clothes for about £100. So now things were on the up. It was back on the lash for another hour. The firm started buying and counterfeiting inter-rail passes, which gave them 6 weeks of train travel anywhere in Europe. Their shoplifting expanded to include jewellery and Nikon, Canon and Leica cameras, which were fenced in Amsterdam. And, after realising it took days and sometimes weeks for Visa cards stolen in Europe to be reported in the UK, credit card fraud soon joined shoplifting and pickpocketing in their armoury of wrongdoing. But despite the widespread assumption that they were less likely to be caught in Europe, Blaney often found himself on the wrong side of the law. United have also been involved in several violent clashes with Everton's County Road Cutters. They are fierce rivals, but the two firms do highly respect each other. Let's look at the details of one of their clashes. Early evening soccer kickoffs could be reviewed after violent clashes between Manchester United and Everton fans. Sports Minister Richard Cabourn said high-profile games where trouble could flare up might need to be played earlier in the day. He spoke out after 33 supporters were arrested and 5 police officers were injured following Saturday's game. Running battles broke out between about 450 rival fans after United's 2-0 FA Cup win at Goodison Park. The flashpoint was in an area known as Everton Valley, about a mile from the ground, as Reds fans were being escorted by police to Lime Street Station, Liverpool. Officers were pelted with missiles. Police have launched an investigation into claims that the running battles were arranged. 33 fans were arrested on suspicion of public order offences or for being drunk and disorderly. one of the injured police officers needed hospital treatment. One United fan said, "Towards the end of the game, United fans were told to wait 5 minutes before leaving. Normally, they give you 15 minutes, so the United fans left pretty quickly. There were about 400 of us." Near Everton Valley, Everton and Liverpool fans started throwing bottles, stones and bricks. It was the worst violence I have seen in years. It began before the game when the Everton fans started chanting about the Munich air disaster. Trouble began during the game when a missile, thought to be a coin, was thrown from the crowd and injured the then United keeper Roy Carroll. Then, you have all the clashes the firm have had with Leeds over the years. Here's details from one of their offs. Police have released pictures of 8 men they want to speak to after violent clashes broke out between Leeds and Manchester United fans in the city centre. Large-scale disorder, including a number of shocking brawls, broke out before the game in August last year. Footage showed supporters punching and attacking each other in horrendous scenes ahead of the Premier League match, which kicked off at 12:30. Police said the violent clashes involved supporters from both sides, and that thankfully no injuries were reported. Serious damage was also kept to a minimum. We could talk all night about offs United have had with Millwall, Birmingham City, Chelsea and so on. Too many to mention, but the bottom line is, the Red Army remain a dangerous firm. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.